Welcome everyone to a new episode of the Zero to Play podcast. I'm your host Carla Duke, and today I'm joined by Elina Arponen. Elina is the CEO and co-founder of QuickSave Interactive, a company dedicated to building games in the emerging social games market. She is a veteran game developer with impressive success as an entrepreneur, mentor, and playing a key role in some of the top games industry associations in Finland. Today, we're going to talk about games and social media and what the opportunity is for chat-based entertainment, building startups in the Finnish games industry, and how QuickSave hopes to carve out a spot in this resurgence of games created with HTML5 within social media platforms. So sit back, relax, and enjoy episode 11 of season 2 of the Zero to Play podcast. All right, welcome Elina to the show. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, awesome. So I've loved just diving deep into HTML5, what Facebook Instant Games is, and this whole resurgence, like I said, of this new space of kind of chat-based games and games that are being hosted within social media platforms. And I have so many questions about this. So we're going to talk about QuickSave Interactive and hopefully talk about some areas of the Finnish games industry, which I'm really looking forward to. But first off, I'd love to hear from your perspective, what is Facebook Instant Games and what is that whole trend that is happening at the moment with Facebook?
Yeah, sure. So Facebook Instant Game started with closed beta about 4 years ago, a bit more than that. That's also the time when our company was founded. So we've been on a front seat to follow how the market has been evolving. And what it's basically about is having games within the Facebook app. And this may seem like something that is repeating, that didn't we have this before, like 10 years ago? But it's actually a new thing this time. It works a bit differently, and also, like all parties, like Facebook has also learned on like how to build the community here. So it gives a lot of, first of all, like social possibilities for games, but it's, contrary to what used to be in the first era of Facebook games, now it's more within also the messaging part of it. So you can send directly messages to your friends, and you can invite your friends to play with you. So it's more around your like smaller closed groups, and not so much about like sharing to everyone in the world, but like playing with your friends and kind of utilizing that within the gameplay. And also this new wave, it's not just Facebook. Facebook is the biggest. They have over 2 billion users, but there's also other apps now doing it. There's Snapchat, WeChat, WeContact, Viber. There's already around 10 apps that offer these integrated games. And we can see that this growth in the market is still continuing. And also what we are very happy about is the quality of the games that we can do here now, with HTML5 also having evolved so much in the past 10 years on like that we can really be in the same quality level as the mobile titles. So it's mainly about like how do you distribute and how do you discover games and how do you play them socially.
Totally. Yeah. I love it just because games and social media, I feel like cross over in so many ways when it comes to building a community. A lot of people talk about how Fortnite competes with Facebook in a lot of ways in terms of a social network, a place where people gather and communicate. And I just want to clarify the context. When you talk about 10 years ago, this kind of trend happened, are you talking about the trend of Farmville and the Scrabble and those kind of Facebook games that were popular 10 years ago?
Yeah. So basically the Farmville era of gaming, like when companies like Chunga were born, that was, I'd say, the first wave of social gaming and now we are kind of seeing a resurgence. And yes, of course, there's social gaming in games like Fortnite and multiplayer games, but now if we talk about the gaming within the social platforms, so we are seeing that being like reborn now. And also it's being part of the communication on. And how we like to think about it is as well is like first people are communicating with texts and emojis, there's images, animated GIFs, then comes videos, and now it's also games within the social media. So how do the games kind of enhance and play a part in that communication? So we are looking at the platform also in like what kind of a new types of games does this enable, and what kind of a play experiences can there be?
Yeah, so do you see the companies like Rovio and Supercell competing with QuickSave Interactive based on where you see this market opportunity, or do you kind of, like you said, very specific game experiences that can only be done within a social media platform? Is that the kind of angle that you're seeing the future of this space being?
Of course, there's competition in the sense that people are spending time with games, and whether they choose to spend the time in like downloadable and installable games, or whether they discover them through their friends in these social networks. So of course, like time-wise, there's always competition, and then there are games that can be very social in nature, that are in App Store and could be kind of fitted and be suitable also for the social market. But definitely, it has been also shown that having a successful game in the traditional marketplaces may not transform to the same success if you just technically transport to the game. So there should be some kind of social element. Some of the like the KPIs, how they play on this market, like your social aspect also is affecting your retention, and they are like more linked together in like how does the game overall perform. So definitely there are opportunities here to develop new types of games. But I'm not saying that there's no overlay, that there's overlap in the types of games, and because these games are played mostly on mobile, Facebook games you can play them on, or the instant games you can play them on the browser as well, or desktop, but majority of the players are playing the mobile, so it is very it has a lot of similarities to how you would play the mobile games.
Yeah, is it possible to know right now what the constraints are in terms of what kind of games? Because obviously you're not going to get like a Last of Us game on Facebook. Like, I think there's probably the technological limitations probably aren't possible in that regard, but as well as maybe like a battle royale game like Fortnite that might not be possible either on a social media platform. Is there a clear area of limitations of what kind of games we will see on platforms like Facebook?
Yeah, there certainly are some things that can be harder to achieve, but I would say overall the technical limitations are much further away than people realize them to be, because I often get this idea that, hey, HTML5 games, they are like mini games, it's only hyper casual, right? And we can do actually like a mid-core type of level social play. I mean, it's still something that is often like easy to pick up, or kind of has this it's easy to target like big audiences here, because the audiences using these apps are huge. So you see a lot of kind of casual gameplay, but technically you can do a lot. That's actually something that we have also developed on the side of the games. Like, we have developed some of our game development tools that help us to iterate faster, and also like we don't want to have any limitation on like how much content or meta game we can have in our products. So that's something that we have been optimizing for, so that the limitation should not be technical, it should be more on the creative side, on like how do you innovate games on this new sector.
So do QuickSave have a few projects, like big projects that they're looking at releasing soon? Do you have projects that are on the market right now that you can play?
Yes, we have games that are on the market, and one thing here is that we also work with some partners, so some of the games can be co-productions. We have some partners that have actually used our tool set to create games for this market sector. And then also we have partners where we work closely together on the game. So I can mention a few. We have a game on the market called Rambo Last Click. There's a Rambo IP there, so it's a cooperation with that as well. But then also a game called Balloon Boy. There's a game called Idle Farm Bunnies. And there's new ones definitely coming. Unfortunately, I can't name this one title, but we have a cooperation now with Space Ape, and they have been a very great partner to work with here, and I'm really looking forward to launch that game
Awesome.
later on.
Yeah, so that's cool that you mentioned Rambo and that you've kind of delved into the whole IP area, and I think that's a really interesting conversation to have as well. Do you see the future of this space being a place that that IPs will kind of use as a marketing strategy to when they're launching a big new title? Say there's a new Jurassic Park movie that comes out. Do you expect to see a Jurassic Park game that's in line with the release of that movie to kind of help with the promotion of it?
So that can happen, and that can be a powerful tool for the games to kind of gain audience and to be seen. That being said, I don't think that's the only strategy or something that is like unique to this platform. Like it is similar to other platforms, and one thing, gaining visibility on this platform, actually how it's now evolving. It's like all the platforms, the different apps that offer these games, they are in a partner model already, or they are going towards that, which is actually like it's becoming in a way a bit more closed, in the sense that you have to like go through a review or you have to go through a partnership. But actually, once you do cross that, it's better for everyone. The gamers get better quality overall, and then also the developers get more visibility, and then the platforms are happy because they retain both of the players and both of the developers, because those parties are happy. So Facebook, for example, is now moving towards this direction, which I support heavily, that they are kind of wanting to increase this quality bar on everything that is on the platform, and that's great.
Yeah, so you've been in the industry for over a decade, and you've seen the kind of shift in trends, I guess, with social media games as a platform. What is the biggest? So I'm kind of thinking, because at the end of last year, Adobe Flash shut down, and that's one question that I want to ask you is how has that changed the kind of perspective of this whole industry? Like, was that quite a big part of this space 10 years ago?
So yeah, I don't see it's had a huge effect now that it went away, in the sense that it wasn't a big thing for a while already. So it's been kind of like known that it's so people have been moving on to different technologies, and I can see like HTML5 is now the winner there. That it's also not just actually within the social apps, but also elsewhere. I can see handset manufacturers starting to offer their own in-phone stores, actually based on HTML5, and I can see it like in a lot of places. So I think it was quite actually surprisingly a small effect. Of course, we were not on the plus market before, so for us there was no effect. But there was some game developers like would shift their games then to HTML5. But as said, like technically, HTML5 is in a good place, and that's then quite possible.
Yeah, no, I read that Adobe Flash really struggled when Steve Jobs released the iPhone, because he refused to let it be supported on iPhones, and that kind of stunted the growth of that. And that's when HTML5 kind of became most popular. You mentioned before that you've partnered with other companies to release games, and that you've provided tools for them to help make games. So would that kind of put you in more of a bucket of being almost like a games engine provider for other companies? Is that how you kind of view QuickSave in one aspect?
That is one aspect of what we've been doing and what we are kind of building here. So yeah, that's definitely something that if there are companies super interested on these opportunities in this market, like, yeah, be in touch, and it's possible that we cooperate with this.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. I read in your research that you worked at some companies building chat-based games, and I think I got a bit confused with the difference between something developed through HTML5 through something like Facebook Instant Games and a chat-based game. And am I right in understanding that there's a difference between those two and those two kind of different types of game experiences?
So it's quite semantic difference, to be honest. I mean, we did start like when we like the three founders that we have with QuickSave Interactive. We founded actually our previous company together. That was 10 years ago in 2010, and we were doing social games, but on a PC platform first.
Mm-hmm.
So then once we first kind of started to think, like it's over 6 years ago, we started to think that, hey, we would like to take our type of games to these messaging apps, which was a new thing. But the games in there like didn't really exist. But then we met with Palringo, which is a British chat app. They've actually since rebranded, so now it's called Wolf's Online Festival. And they were at the time like forerunner in the space because they were running these games within their messaging app. Mm-hmm. But the very first phase, it was like text and images and kind of almost like game bots mm-hmm. that you chat with and you play with. Yeah. But then once they acquired our company and we joined the team pretty soon after, like with our help, they built up their HTML5 interface, which of course like enables so much more like deeper gameplay, because essentially also not every command is not a spam to the chat. So you can just be more choosy on like what you display in the chat and what is in the game, and so we did do some like kind of bot games there would be like more kind of like a first version of the chat game, but really it's kind of semantic what you call this new area, and it's a bit confusing because it's Facebook Instant Games, but then other platforms, of course, Snapchat has Snap Games, and they all have their own name for it. So it's like the new social gaming.
That is really interesting. I'm excited because I feel like there's just a lot of new social experiences that could come about that haven't been created yet. And I find that really just interesting for games as an industry. And I'm looking for that one title that makes people go into Facebook or go into Snapchat to play a certain game. And I'm wondering if you think any game like that, any game experience that exists right now that you think would be worth mentioning that does make the most of the platforms that you couldn't find on the App Store, you couldn't find on a console. Is there an experience that you think is worth mentioning now that's unique to the platform, the social media platforms?
Well, I'd say actually the kind of a Super Mario of the platform, or the Zelda of the platform, it's still in the making as a kind of a big breakthrough, as you say. There are definitely elements of that in many of the games already visible on like kind of what are the early successes there. But I guess, to be honest, I'm not sure if I would not just like highlight one game above everything else right now, because it's more of a combination of games having the features there, and I'd say the platform is ready technically. Of course, it's been maturing, and we have been seeing increased interest within the last year on like companies looking into it, and the platforms kind of like getting it all, like everything together on like how does the platform work technically, how does the partner models work, how does the whole ecosystem like really evolve, and so we're seeing like everything maturing. But of course there is still some blue ocean left as well in like what type of games can be made and what genres are not even there yet. So so definitely it's a new frontier to kind of explore at this point.
That's really exciting, and that's what I love about the games industry is that when you talk about VR and AR, there's still so many areas to explore, and even just technological advancements with current gen consoles and the things that are possible, and then just now seeing social media as a whole other frontier that is going to be developed is really fascinating for games. Just how it's really covering so much ground across the whole spectrum of what's possible on the internet and technology, and I find that really fascinating. One thing I want to ask you before I forget is just because it's current, the whole Apple and Epic lawsuit that's happening right now. I would love to know, if possible, what your thoughts are on that, and if you see that affecting the social media platform landscape at all.
Yeah, definitely. It's very important panel right now for the whole industry, and it's not just about the App Store percentages, how I see it. It's overall like the kind of what is the power balance between different players in the ecosystem, and you know, what can they do. For example, Steve Jobs originally was very favorable to HTML5. He was speaking very forward, like HTML5 is going to be the future, but Apple right now is not most favorable for HTML5 in the sense that, like, if you look at instant games, the in-game purchases are working on the Android and on the web, but iOS currently is monetized with ads, video ads, and interstitial ads only, and that's kind of those App Store within an app limitations that come to play there. It's not even about the percentages. The percentages actually are the same here. That kind of relates to the question. So the developer is getting 70% of the in-game purchases, and the platform, whether it's Google or Facebook, depends, is getting 30%. But yeah, so it does relate, because we are kind of talking about here this post App Store era, like how do people discover games? Like there are multiple ways to find the game. It's not just within the iOS or the Android store, and so what is the power balance there, and how can what can kind of Apple do there? And yes, definitely, I'm following up that.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's you're right, and it's very clear that it does affect, you know, all areas of games, especially social media apps that you can play games through. You know, there's it's got to go through so many channels before it gets to the actual playing the game. And yeah, so that's exciting. I'm excited to see how what your thoughts are as this develops, and as news. Hopefully, we'll see if there's any breakthroughs and any big changes in the industry.
Yeah, and how I see the instant games, like they are actually bringing the user experience and finding the game like closer to the user, like where they already are. Like they don't have to go through the trouble of going to App Store, installing and downloading everything. So it's like very frictionless and easy for the users, and yeah, that's
totally. There's another big trend that's been spoken about a lot this year, and that's the creator economy, and that's just talking about people creating their own content and owning kind of, or creating a living through making content online, whether it's videos or articles or even just tweets. And I had this vision of maybe a future where people could create games that were native, that you were just scrolling through Twitter, and then you found like a mini game that you could play as you were scrolling. And I just want to know if that is a vision that you think HTML5 and the way social media platforms are going, if that's something that could be possible in the near future.
Yeah, sure. That's an interesting vision. How it now works, because like getting the games accepted on the platforms, like if you are scrolling down your Facebook feed and you see a game there, it's possible to see a game there if someone has like a for example started the tournament, and the tournament is visible there on the post. So currently the game would be created by a developer who's done it and put it on the platform. but yeah, definitely like user created content and user like participation, and how can the users feel like the game is they can have some kind of an ownership of like what they do in the game, or how the game is reflected on their feed if they post it somewhere. So that's definitely very kind of important part of it. I don't see it happening as of yet of like people actually creating their games. I know there are some like different like own platforms dedicated just for more like just for that. But yeah, in our kind of like for example the tools, the development pipeline that we've been developing, it's more geared towards the kind of bigger game experiences or kind of higher quality titles. So optimizing more on the quality than just like having the quantity of the games.
Yeah. How do you view experiences like Roblox and what they're trying to do with creating a platform for games from the ground up? Do you see that as a competition in any way to QuickSave, or do you see you guys using your resources in any way to help in that area of the games industry that's being developed?
Yeah, so that's that kind of goes into the whole metaverse discussion as well, on like how do the kind of game players like become creators? How when you watch the gaming, and all the different levels of interaction that you can have with the product on many different levels. So I see like HTML5 as a technology, and how what's the part of there. I can see that it plays a role. I haven't compared so much to Roblox, but like if we look at the cloud streaming services, that's also like a new cloud platforms that are coming. And HTML5 is also can be considered cloud gaming, but because the game is run on your local device, the cost structure of the infrastructure that you need to run the game is lower. With cloud services, you need to run all the servers, and it actually becomes more costly to run the game. So in here we can be a bit more nimble, and then like and we can have like free to play models. It doesn't have to be like subscription based either. So yeah, I see them like all these different modes like coexisting, and also when looking into for example, the cloud services, or even games like Roblox, like if they want to implement some kind of active viewership, like what if the viewers of the game can affect the outcomes in the game, or like this kind of interactions, then that would be like a lightweight back channel on top of the game, which would be a HTML5 interface basically. So so yeah, I see all these like different modes of gaming like kind of intertwining in the future.
Yeah, definitely. I love the conversation I had on the podcast with Jacob Navok, who's developing GenVid technologies, or building GenVid technologies and developing experiences through like live streaming and creating further interaction through platforms like Twitch. And I find that really fascinating, just creating different experiences that I guess you can call games, but that the discussion of what is a game and what is an experience and what is social media kind of gets blurred, and I feel like it's continuing to get blurred. And that's one thing I want to ask you actually is what is your definition of a game in terms of what you're developing at QuickSave? What is a game to you?
Oh, if we go to yeah, the philosophical boundaries, like I guess but my definition that I've learned, I think I'm quoting somebody here, is like games are creative activity within given boundaries. So there must be rules to the game. You have to have boundaries, but then there's also creativity. What you do is not defined. So that's for cool. me the widest definition of what is a game. Yeah. And yeah, but definitely the boundaries are getting blurred in many directions. Yeah.
No, that's really exciting. I would love to take a shift now and talk a bit more about QuickSave and the funding and just that whole industry, the games industry in Finland. What has it been like seeking funding, and what's that process been like now? I know you guys are hiring as well, so that's something I'd love you to just mention, like what kind of roles you're hiring. But what stage are you in the process now, and how can anyone listening help out?
Yeah, sure. So we actually, prior to this spring, we had only raised like a pre-seed funding from some very great people in the industry close to Finland and in the Nordics. And also we had like one of the first backers was Sisu Game Ventures from Finland. But now, just recently, we also closed our seed round, where Convoy Ventures is leading from the US, and I'm super excited to have them on board on this journey. And this is really opening up the possibility for us to practically to grow the team, but also like more importantly to kind of look at really seriously like what is the best opportunity that we go after, and how can we help this market to grow as well. Like it's like because it's an exciting opportunity, like the whole market around you is growing and you're kind of growing together with it. Mm-hmm. It's now we have Convoy Ventures, Raptor Group, and Lago Innovation also like joining, and yeah, we just raised like 1 million euros. Awesome. There. So yeah, that is kind of like part of like why we are hiring now, and super happy to grow the team with more experts now. We are definitely looking to fill roles on the technical side. We are pretty technology oriented company in the DNA, so we're looking both kind of DevOps tools programmers and game programmers. But pretty much you could say that that if you are excited on this area and joining, like we are doing some interviews on pretty much all the kind of different disciplines, and also on the management production side.
I heard somewhere that just because of the state of the world right now, you're kind of being remote as a company. Are these positions available remotely, or do you need to be based in Finland to be eligible?
Yeah, that's a super good question, because now for the past year we've all been remote anyways, so we have a slight preference for people to move to Finland, like even if not necessarily like starting here, like if you are remote in the beginning and we see how it works, and then if it all works well, and you kind of like we have a slight preference for you to move to Finland. It's easier. We're still a small company, so with the time zones and sometimes seeing in person, like we have an office now in Helsinki, and we do plan to have these office days where like let's everyone get together and and kind of like just see each other and spend some time together, because that can be fun and but definitely like the day-to-day or the weekly kind of meetings and everything, we will enable them to be like fully remote. So also our team members in Finland can choose to be from home when they want to be, and in that case,
Yeah, cool. No, it sounds like you're dealing with the same thing that so many other people are dealing with, but the fact that you're raising funds during this time as well, I think just speaks to the industry, to the passion that you guys have for building something in this climate as well. I had a question. What was it? It just flew away from me. Oh yeah. So you obviously you've done this before. You said you founded this company with the same people that you founded your previous company, and I've seen that you've had a lot of experience just kind of being a part of the growth of a lot of different companies. What has been the biggest challenge when it comes to whether it's raising funds or putting out products? Like why is it that you love doing what you do?
Yeah, I mean, I guess anyone who's in the gaming industry kind of feels the passion of like just doing the games. Like once you get into it, I mean, there's no switching back. But I think additionally for me, like why do I keep building companies? I mean, it's a hard thing to do, and you know that there can be frustrations or that there's difficulties. But I guess overall, like the more you kind of overcome difficulties, the more you start to trust yourself that, you know, whatever is thrown at you next, you know, you're gonna go over it because you've gone. I mean, it's always different things. It's not the same problems that come at you, but you know, there can always be challenges. But yeah, I love the adventure. So like just building the companies, being an entrepreneur is something that I found that I like to do. And it's been amazing that I've had these incredible co-founders with me now for like joining me on the journey. I'd say actually like this funding round now that we've just raised is really important for me personally as well, because it is kind of a culmination of course as well on like you know, building my own kind of like a career as an entrepreneur, like building companies and learning how all this works. And so the previous company we had, we were like struggling with the funding, on getting enough funding. We had a fairly ambitious title, so we always felt like, you know, what if we had the proper funding? Would we have made this or that? Or like, you know, like when your runway is maximum 6 months at any time, you know, it can be a challenge to kind of how do you keep everything together and moving forward. So this kind of enables us, like the funding doesn't create the success, but it enables it. So this really kind of like we can get rid of those what ifs, like what if we and just like go and do our thing. Yeah.
I'm just curious, are there government incentives that you're making the most of to help extend that runway, or just help soften the blow to get you guys from year to year? Because that's something I'm really fascinated with in the Finnish game industry, and everything that's been able to be achieved with Supercell and Rovio and companies like that. Are there a lot of incentives that you guys have available?
Yes, definitely. Like the Finnish government is helping the gaming industry and all actually other technology startup industries as well do get help with the gaming. It has actually been improving in the past 10 years. Like when we very first started, there was less interest, but then you know, Angry Birds and Supercell happened, and you know the market in Finland kind of flew up even more. So definitely it's been super helpful. There is this entity called Business Finland that gives like R&D grants and soft loans. So it's kind of match funding, so that you always need a private component if you're a startup, and then you can apply for this. In the beginning, it's a grant, or then if you go a bit further and it's bigger sums, it becomes like a soft loan. But it's a very, very good terms of the loan and everything. So it makes sense because it's a non-diluting funding for your company. So
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I hope to see more things like that in the New Zealand gaming industry. Just more funds that, you know, small studios can have access to some capital to develop a prototype, even just to make a proof of concept, to see if there's any interest. So being in a country with these massive games companies that have completely exploded in the last decade, how big do you see QuickSave getting? Are you kind of building it with the hope that it gets to something that has 1,000 employees, or do you have the mindset of quite like a small studio kind of atmosphere where you don't want it to become too corporate?
Yeah, I think that's kind of a shared culture now in the Finnish gaming industry, that everyone speaks to, is like where with the small teams you can achieve a lot. I think that's even like the tagline of small giant games nowadays. And you know, Supercell was one of the pioneers of like having independent teams working on games, and they are not at 1,000 employees yet. So it's something that it's in the mindset to build good technology that enables you also to be very efficient, that your employees can really be productive in the time, and like having high quality talent in a company kind of like creates this perfect storm. So I wouldn't say that our success is measured by the number of employees, like how big there we want to grow, but of course we do want to grow in the market share of like having a big footprint on this new market, and kind of there
That's
being
awesome.
at the top.
Are there other companies in Finland, or do you see it as quite a popular space with projects that you're waiting to hear from? Like, is it quite a competitive space? Do you think at the moment, or do you think it's still very early stages in the social games platform market?
Yeah, the social games platform market, definitely it's still early in the sense that I don't see it being hyper competitive. Of course, there are other companies. We are the only one in Finland that is like purely focused on this. We do have partners, Sepia Games and Taipatsu Interactive, who work together with us on games, but yeah, we're kind of the pioneers in Finland. But even though the whole ecosystem in Finland is very cooperative between the companies, even if you would be on the same market, like people meet a lot and share information, and I think the whole community spirit is actually what's really making the industry strong in Finland. I mean, the government funding we talked about, that helps, but it's even more in the spirit of how the companies also cooperate, and if there's a newcomer, like people in the industry, they like to help, and yeah.
Is there, just from a wider community perspective, are there regular meetups and events that happen within the Finnish game industry to help celebrate wins and things like that?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of active events. I mean, the past year has been difficult. I mean, it took a long time to kind of actually, like, even just this year we've had like more activity on like having these online meetups happen even in different scales. But in the normal situations, yes, there's a lot of this. IGDA is organizing activities. There's Finnish Game Studios Association, where I was in the board for some years, and they have, for example, this game industry gala every year, which is a big event. And there's the roof organization New Games that is kind of bringing everything together, and they are doing very good work in like kind of like facilitating also like trade commissions, or like let's do, kind of get a discount if we all go there, and having these things happen together, and now also there's a lot of like regional hubs in different cities. There's just recently like less than 2 years ago, there's this Helsinki Games Capital that was born, like where I'm now in the board that is taking care of the Helsinki region ecosystem. And yeah, so there's a lot of collaboration, and often in the events that you go to, it's great to have someone sponsoring and giving a talk, but also you go there because of the other people. So I'd say the attendees are often the best content in the events.
Cool. No, that's awesome. It sounds like a place that I'd love to visit and spend a few weeks, maybe go to a few events, because that's what, when you're trying to build a game, it can be very lonely. It can take years, and I think sharing those conversations with other developers, seeing other wins that are happening locally is definitely motivating and keeps you on track to stay focused on, especially if you're waiting for a market to mature and waiting for it to become more widely adopted. It must be nice to see the wins around you in Helsinki and kind of know that you're all kind of building games because you love games. That must be nice.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you put it very well.
Yeah. So I mean, those are all the questions I have. I do really appreciate you making the time and speaking on the community, on what QuickSave is doing and how the industry is is maturing and changing, and that's definitely a space that I want to make sure I look at. I haven't used Snapchat in years, but maybe Snap Games is the thing that will bring me back to the platform. You never know. But that's what makes me really excited about the kind of innovations that are happening in this space. So just before I throw it over to you to give one last plug, if there's anything you want to share, anyone that's interested in following Elina, you can find her on Twitter at yonder_. That's YONDER_ to follow her journey and the QuickSave journey. But other than that, is there anything else that you want to share, and any direction you want to point the people that are listening that might be interested in what you're doing?
Yeah, sure. So overall, I guess the main message here is kind of a not to kind of underestimate or like kind of ignore the market that's building up. Like I think it's been gaining momentum almost unseen here. So not many people are so aware of like what is happening and all the cool things there. But yeah, I'm open to definitely to reach out to if you do want to learn more and potentially cooperate on something. If you want to be in touch, so definitely do that.
Awesome. Yeah, and check out the QuickSave website to find out the jobs that are available that you can message and show your interest. So yeah, thank you, Elina, for your time, and I wish you a good rest of your day in Finland.
Thank you. Thanks, Carl, for having me here. It was great to have a chat.